Welcome to Saturday's Warrior. As always, I'm Trevor, and with me today, I've got Braiden Turner to preview Kansas. He's with the Aint No Seats podcast, and this is in anticipation for the matchup against BYU this weekend. Braiden, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited for this game, and I know a lot of BYU fans are going to be in Lawrence, and it's been fun interacting with them on social media all week, and I'm looking forward to meeting all the fans and heard how passionate they are, and I've heard how well they travel. So I'm excited to just see the atmosphere on Saturday and play against a really good team and well-coached team.
Yeah, BYU fans are obviously ecstatic. This is our first official Big 12 in-conference game, and so we only get one of these. We're never getting this back, and so this is a huge moment. And to tell you the truth, before the season, I was looking at games. I was like, "Well, this is the one I got to go to, right? Like this is huge. This is momentous." And ultimately, decided to go to one closer to home. But it's going to be, BYU fans are going to be ecstatic, and yes, they travel well. And yeah, so it should be a lot of fun. I think BYU and Kansas are, to me, at least in my mind, are in a similar tier in college football in terms of kind of where we're at. But it's about the matchup. And so that's what we want to see today. I've been starting to do this kind of series of know your foe before each week to get a better idea of who the opponent is, especially now that we're in conference and wanting to get a better idea of who our new conference rivals are. And I got to tell you one thing about Kansas is I don't think there's another school out there that I can feel so differently towards based on the sport. So in football, this is a feel-good story. Everyone loves, like, oh, wow, they're coming from the dregs of college football, turning around. They're fun. They're exciting to watch versus basketball, which is just another, it's one of those teams that you love to hate. You're basically the Texas or Alabama kind of college basketball. So, but it'll be obviously a great environment to play in. So I do have to say though, back in 2003, that was my best bracket I've ever filled out. I had 15 games right on the first day. I had 3 of my final 4. I had Kansas versus Syracuse in the championship, but I had Kansas winning it all. So
couldn't make a free throw.
I don't know if I've gotten over that. So
no, that's still a game we talk about all the time, because that's really when I first started loving KU. I was like 8, 9 years old, and we had Nick Collison, Kirk Heinrich, all those. That's how I fell in love with KU. And we actually had Keith Langford on our podcast a couple months ago, and that's who my first favorite player was. And we still, as people my age and even older, we still talk about that game. KU was 12 for 30, if you can believe that. 12 for 30 from the free throw line in the national championship game, and lost by 3 to Carmelo and Hakeem Warwick and all those guys. So yeah, you go 16 for 30 from the line and you win. It's just wild. They weren't even 50% from the line. But yeah, that's a game I'll never get over, because it should have been another national title for KU.
Yeah. It was an exciting game though. At least it was a good one. It was an all-timer. So anyway, so BYU, before we get into talking about BYU and Kansas, don't have a lot of overlap, a lot of history. There's one game, a bowl game they played in the 90s, and which I found some very limited grainy footage of online. And but there are a couple. So we had Jake Heaps, who was supposed to be the next great quarterback for BYU, eventually transferred to Kansas after he got benched. He just wasn't performing, and then he came to Kansas. So I'm just curious, what is Kansas's impression of Jake Heaps? How did that go?
That's still a name that we will throw around. I mean, we'll throw around quarterback names, and all the names that were part of the teams that weren't very good. I mean, you talked about it. They were in the basement. KU has been awful since Mangino was fired. And so Jake Heaps is a name that we'll bring up, but I truly have always said that was a coaching staff thing. I mean, I think Jake Heaps is a guy that he was on an NFL roster there for a little bit. I think he was with Seattle. So he wasn't good at KU, but it's also the talent surrounding him. He was a huge recruit coming out. We landed Dane Christ. I don't know if you remember that name. He went to Notre Dame. He was a 5-star quarterback coming out of high school, huge name. Came to KU, was terrible. So the coaches were not good before Leipold. The talent surrounding them, the offensive line in the trenches was bad. So yeah, Heaps, I think we'll bring his name up with the other quarterbacks that weren't very good here, but I never thought it was really a Jake Heaps thing.
Yeah. So yeah, his tenure obviously at BYU, when you get benched and then end up transferring, didn't go as everyone imagined. He's actually, I don't know if a first cousin, but my wife's brother-in-law, his cousin or second cousin or something. So there's some relation there to Jake Heaps, but I felt like he handled it in a very classy way. He was still very engaged on the sideline. He was very supportive. And so I always thought well of him after that. But in terms of, his performance, it wasn't what we were hoping for. But the other one is the Lassiter family. And so we're going to have a potential matchup. We got Darius Lassiter, who's a wide receiver for BYU. Mm-hmm. And then his brother is, it's Quentin. Is that who is the cornerback?
Mm-hmm.
So potentially they could go head to head up against each other. That would be fun to watch. It's kind of interesting that he didn't also end up in Kansas. I don't know exactly, how or why that didn't happen, but what does the Lassiter family mean there in Kansas?
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's a really cool story. You kind of just laid it out. I mean, they have a chance to go against each other, playing on opposite sides of the ball. I'm sure they're both looking forward to it. Their family, I'm sure, will be in the house. But yeah, I don't know a ton. I'm not sure on the recruiting story on both either, but I think that's a really cool story, and that was talked about kind of right away when the games ended this weekend, when you guys beat Arkansas and we somehow escaped Nevada. The Lassiter brother thing was brought up, so I think it's a really cool story and something I'm definitely paying attention to on Saturday.
Yeah, it should be a good storyline. It's fun to see some of the trash talk between them, but so all right, so let's talk shop now. So Kansas obviously has gotten back on the map. They definitely had a fantastic start to the season last year. I think a lot of their success was due to their offense and the star quarterback, Jalen Daniels. But what can you tell me about? So, I mean, that's if people don't know anything else about Kansas, that's probably what they do know. But what can you tell me about the Kansas offense? What kind of scheme they run and where they're what makes them so good and effective?
Yeah, offensive coordinator Andy Kotelnicki he's a genius. I think he'll be a head coach somewhere someday. Our fans don't like to talk about it because they want to keep him around for a while. And he's been with Lance and the staff for a long time. So they've rode together everywhere they've been. They've all been together. So he always stresses how he wants to be the most frustrating offense in the country, most difficult offense to prepare for in the country. And they throw a lot of stuff at you, a lot of guys in motion, a lot of different formations. They had an NFL team running plays that he ran last year. We were at Houston and we had a running back in shotgun. Jalen Daniels was next to him. They handed it off to him. He came around, circled around, threw it to our tight end in the end zone. And the Browns ran that week 1 with Deshaun Watson, where he was lined up at running back and he threw a deep bomb. So there's people running his plays, super dynamic offense. And like I said, they'll throw a lot of stuff at you. And I think JD is the perfect guy to run the offense. He's a smart quarterback and makes pretty good decisions for the most part. And I think he's a perfect quarterback for Kotelnicki's system. So yeah, it starts with Kotelnicki, and you talk to any of the players and they just have super high praise for him. He's really engaging with the players and he has them all together in meetings on Mondays and they draw up plays all together. They have players drawing up plays and Kotelnicki drawing up 100 new plays every Monday. So bring a lot at you and it's really fun to watch. And I think you guys will see a little bit of it on Saturday because they didn't show a ton in Reno last weekend against Nevada. So it should be a pretty open playbook.
Yeah. So one thing that you kind of have in similar with Arkansas, but also different is in quarterback. So Arkansas's quarterback, Jefferson, he is also a dual threat, but in a different way, maybe not quite as quick, but he is a big guy and tough to bring down. Jalen Daniels is a little bit probably quicker and shiftier. So, I mean, what have other teams done or been able to do to try to slow him down? And has it worked?
Yeah, I mean, last year there was a game against Iowa State, and they're always really good defensively. I think he threw for 90 something yards. We won 12 to 10 or 12 to 7. Iowa State's field goal kicker missed 3 field goals. It was wild, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a way teams really have slowed him down. I mean, I think you take away his running ability would be huge. He can get out in space and make things happen. He was so good last year on 3rd and 4th down with his legs. We played at Houston, and that was a game where Houston's been good for a while. Our fans were kind of nervous about the game, and there had been talk about getting out of it because they were about to join the Big 12. So talked about getting out of it. We're down 14-0 to start the game right off the bat. And there was huge 3rd downs where Jalen just kept drives alive with his legs, kept moving the chain. So he's really good on 3rd downs. But yeah, I think he's going to make throws with his arm no matter what. But if you can limit him running the football and kind of contain him, I think that's a huge deal.
Yeah. And then obviously you guys have Devin Neal, and it looks like he's on pace right now to have another 1,000-yard rushing season. Obviously it'll get a little bit tougher getting into Big 12 play, but he's done it before. So what's really the secret with him? Like leaning on him, obviously it gives you 2 threats in the backfield there.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of people won't know this, but last year Highshaw had a season-ending injury against Iowa State, the game I was talking about. And so Devin Neal was pretty much in the backfield, not by himself, but not with a second running back that was as talented as Highshaw is, and kind of had some new faces that had to take a load of the work. But yeah, he's unreal. He's from Lawrence, Kansas, so hometown kid. He's a pretty big recruit coming out, and it was a big deal that he stayed. He could have went to a lot of schools around the country, but he ended up staying in Lawrence, and he's been as good as advertised. He's getting better every year. He is 40 carries for 303 yards this year, averaging 7.6 a pop, 6 total touchdowns, and he just does everything. There's plays where he'll make something out of nothing. He'll be stuffed at the line, and he'll turn it into a 6-yard gain or whatever it is. And he's really shifty. He can make guys miss. He can cut and go. I think he's one of the best running backs in the country. And I think people will see that throughout the year. I think you see KU and you don't really think of their players in that regard just yet, but I think he's as good as anybody, especially in the league. And I just really love watching him play. I want a full year of him and Highshaw healthy and see what they can do, see how good the offense can be.
Yeah. And one thing is, you guys, the Kansas offense is pretty well balanced in terms of rushing and passing, which is interesting because I think of Kansas and I think Jalen Daniels, I think, a lot of passing, but they've been able, that's allowed them to keep a pretty steady and even attack. And as you said, the playbook is, you guys have kept it somewhat limited thus far, and BYU had too until obviously Arkansas, and I'm sure there's other plays that they have there as well. But that's to me been something that stood out, and then it kind of makes you think, well, you got to choose your poison if you want to stop them. You shut them down, but there's other options. So how about in terms of wide receivers? Obviously he's throwing it, and he's got to have some talent out there on the wings.
Yeah. So you said balanced, and that's really how it's been with the receiving room. At least this year and last year, you got Lawrence Arnold back, Luke Grimm back, Quentin Skinner back, and Skinner showed a lot last year. At the end of the year, he had some huge catches. He made big catches last week against Nevada. There was a drive where they took the lead late. He made 2 massive catches, and I don't know if they score on that drive without him making those catches, and they would have put themselves in a spot where Nevada had the ball late in a tie game, but he made 2 outstanding catches. He's tall, athletic, can go up, high point the ball. Lawrence Arnold has been insanely consistent since he's been at KU. It's a guy that put his name in the portal last year. He was going to leave. He was gone. The staff it was the staff's first year, so he was going to leave, and they kind of begged him to come back. The players begged him, ended up coming back, and it was massive for KU. I don't know if they make a bowl game without him. And then Luke Grimm, it's a guy, I think he's, in my opinion, one of the most underrated receivers in the league, maybe in the country. It's just typical white receiver, plays in the slot, really good route runner, doesn't do anything that'll pop off on tape or, I guess, blow you away, but he gets open. He runs really good routes. I think you'll see it on Saturday. JD will probably find him on a huge third down, and he'll be open. So yeah, none of these receivers really do anything that'll blow you away, but they're all super consistent, get open, especially Luke Grimm. And then Mason Fairchild at tight end. He's been really solid for KU and hasn't been utilized a ton this year. But they got him going a little bit against Nevada. So they don't have the greatest weapons in the country, but they're insanely solid and really serviceable.
So how about on the other side of the ball on defense? That was obviously a weak point for Kansas last year. We hear, we're told, we've improved on defense. Your schedule has been a little bit lighter so far. I mean, Illinois is not a cupcake, but
No.
It's been a little lighter so far. It's that, especially in terms of load that the defense has to take on. So can you tell me about what kind of improvements they've made there and where the strength of the defense is?
Yeah, so that was every KU fan's worry going into the year. Obviously, last year they couldn't stop the run. You talked about KJ Jefferson earlier. We played them in the bowl game last year. It's 55-53. It went to double or triple OT, but he kind of did whatever he wanted. He's a big bully. He's huge. He can run, throw. So yeah, that was fun. But
he did the same to us last year too. So
yeah, so. Stopping the run. We played Texas, obviously Bijan Robinson. He's one of the most talented running backs in the world. Going into that game, you just knew what was coming. They were going to bully us up front. Bijan was going to run it. It was like 30 degrees out. They beat us 50 something to 7 or whatever it was. So stopping the run was an issue. So we really had no clue what we were getting this year because we had a ton of new names, ton of transfers. They got Devin Phillips from Colorado State, Austin Booker from Minnesota, Gage Keys from Minnesota. A lot of new names that we weren't used to, and the defense, like you said, struggled. There was a game at Oklahoma where our backup quarterback played really well. It was a shootout early, but their offense was too much. They went up tempo. Our defense couldn't stop them. So I think just another year under Brian Borland has been huge. I know we're only 3 games in, but I think picking up on the system a little more, all the guys returning. I don't know if you know this, but KU returned 91% of their production from last year. So we returned pretty much everyone on defense besides Lonnie Phelps, who could have came back. And then on offense, we returned everyone besides one of our offensive tackles who went to the NFL. So everyone's back. I think maybe another year together is huge, and then learning the system. So they've been good so far. But like you said, the schedule hasn't been crazy. Missouri State, I think Illinois is really, that was a game we all looked forward to and were nervous about. But they're offensively challenged. Quarterback's not great. So I don't know what to take from it so far. And I think we'll see this week. If not this week, we'll definitely see it next week in Austin. So I think they've been great up front. The front seven's been better, but we'll see when they play better teams and get into league play a little more.
Yeah, I mean, it's always nice to bring back a lot of your talent, but then if your talent struggled, that's one of the questions. But like you said, having another year of in the system and working together, that says a lot. So where does the defense, or where have they struggled, at least in the past? What were some of the issues, at least last year?
Yeah, I mean, in the run game last year, it was pretty bad. And luckily we had Lonnie Phelps to get pressure on the quarterback. Our secondary has been solid. I mean, Kenny Logan's been here for 4 years now. And he could have transferred a couple of years ago to a bigger school, but he loves KU, loves Lawrence. Our fans love him. He can be a big play guy. Kobe Bryant's the same way. One of our corners, he had a pick 6 last year in Morgantown. You don't see it much, but KU ended up winning by 14 or 13 technically in overtime. We had the ball first, score. He had a pick 6, took it all the way. Our coaches were telling him to go down, but he took it all the way, pick 6. So he's a big play guy. he can give up big plays, but he can make big ones. Marvin Grant transferred from Purdue. And then we have Caleb Gervin. He transferred from Michigan State. So we have some talent. Also, you have Craig Young. He's solid, plays the hawk position for KU. He transferred from Ohio State. He actually played a little bit there. So we were all pumped about that. He's been super solid. But yeah, I think stopping the run, that's really, I think they've really hammered that on the team, the coaching staff. I think it's probably to a point where they tried to embarrass them and made it a huge talking point this offseason, because you could tell they've been all in and invested. And Illinois was a team where I was texting people around the program where they really were nervous about that game in the trenches. And you could tell the defensive line took that as a challenge because they were so good in that game. Illinois didn't run on them. We ran on Illinois, and Illinois has a first-round draft pick on their defensive line. So I think that has been an issue stopping the run, but I think they've really pressed that on those guys. And some of our corners, I mean, you're going to give up big plays in the Big 12. I'm sure you've watched Big 12 football. They spread it out, spread offenses, and it's just tough to stop. Like, I'm already having nightmares thinking about OU and Texas games. So, yeah, I think our defense has been better, but like I said, there's still a long ways to go. We're 3 weeks in, but yeah, stopping the run has been a huge thing and a huge, I guess, what word am I looking for here? I guess they've just been pressing it on the team. Like I said, that's been a huge kind of thing this offseason. Yeah.
And when I was looking at your 3 games, it looked like Nevada actually, because they had the most success. I was like, well, what'd they do? And it does look like they ran a little bit more, but not a ton more. But they ran
with
in terms of total yardage, but they ran more of their offense was through. I think they had a lot more yards through running than versus passing. And so I was wondering, if that's the key. Unfortunately for BYU, we've struggled with the run game this year. So that unfortunately one team is, bound to, come break through this week. Either we figure out our run game against a team that has struggled with the run defense in the past, or your defense, figures it out and continues to shut down our rushing. So, which is a scary thing to think about. And then lastly, not to ignore the third phase of special teams. One thing, you guys have been pretty efficient, haven't had to kick a whole lot of field goals, probably haven't had to punt a whole lot either. And I'm not sure how you guys are in terms of coverage of those. How do you guys feel about special teams? Because for BYU, that's been one thing that really came through and I think helped us against Arkansas, is that we were starting with really good field position. Which is one reason we say, well, yeah, we didn't have so many yards, but we scored a lot, but there weren't a lot of yards to gain because we were starting, closer to midfield. On the other hand, I don't know if you can always bank on starting with good field position. So I don't know, how does Kansas stack up in that category?
Yeah, so that was definitely one of the biggest points of emphasis this offseason, but probably the biggest, even over the running. Our defense against the run. We had a kicker that he just struggled at KU. He was 22 for 38 in his career at KU, which is, close to 50%. He transferred. Our fans were kind of tough on him, but they missed a lot of big kicks, and they get Seth Keller from Texas State, who he was really good there. And I said this on our podcast the other night for our guys to knock on wood. You probably won't want to, but he hasn't missed a kick yet. We got a Australian punter who we haven't used him a ton. I think he's been solid, and special teams has been a lot better. I think just having a solid field goal kicker just makes me feel really comfortable, because I think KU, with how dynamic their offense is, they're going to be in the other team's territory a lot. They're not saying they're going to put up 6 on the board every time, but if you're facing a 4th and 8 inside the 30 and you got a 45-yarder and can't really go for it. When you're at the 40 and you got 4th and short, it's kind of no man's land where you got to probably go for it. But now you have a kicker that you can trust, and you can kick 45, 50-yarders and feel good about it. So last year you couldn't do that. I think that puts even more pressure on the offense and even more pressure on Kotelnicki to call good plays there. So yeah, Keller's been great so far. Hasn't kicked a ton, like you said. Our punter hasn't punted a ton. So I think we'll see a lot more. But yeah, I wondered about BYU last week, and I'm interviewing a BYU guest tonight. So I'd been interested in how the score was 38-31, how BYU put up 38 points. So I guess I'm interviewing you kind of now, but I was kind of wondering how BYU put up 38 points, and they won by 7, and they gave up a punt return for a touchdown. So they could have won by even more.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was a lot of it. Good field position. Some of that was turnovers, and then they also shanked a punt that I can't remember. They gained almost nothing. It was essentially a turnover, right? With it went out of bounds and it gained maybe 10 yards or something. It was almost nothing. And so, there was a few of those, but yeah, it was wild. It was one of those games where it's like, I've never been more happy with a team that's given up, 31 points against an SEC team, a defense, and then more confused with about an offense that's put up, what we did on an SEC defense. It's just wild. Like the score didn't always match with what it felt like we were watching, but the defense was aggressive and they were out there. And so I'm hoping that continues and we'll see, because our defense was terrible last year as well, but we got a new defensive coordinator, and we felt like we had talent, especially in terms of our linebackers. But now we're really, I think, putting them in a scheme and putting our defense in position to have more success. Before, it was a little bit more bend don't break kind of approach, and so more aggressive. But so I already mentioned one thing in terms of matchups. Our run game has struggled, and we're going up against your defense, which has struggled against the run. But then also in terms of safety, we're down now 3 guys to injury. And so we're really thin there in that position. And so that makes me a little worried. It's great if we can put pressure on Jalen Daniels, but on the other hand, I don't know if he'll be able to take advantage of that, whereas Jefferson wasn't able to. So
yeah, I don't know if I heard it right, but are they starting a walk-on at safety?
Yeah.
So are you guys down starting safeties, or are you down just depth?
No starting safeties. So it just kind of one after another. And last week, one of our other veteran safeties, he took a bad angle, and after that, he's kind of been playing backup role. So, and that's when the walk-on got moved to switch to starter. So, I think he's played well. So that's promising. But yeah, whenever that's happening and you're already just a couple games in, so to the season, it is a little scary, especially going up against quarterbacks that have had success. Although one thing you mentioned before we hopped on was it's supposed to be rainy this weekend. So how is that going to impact Kansas's ability to move the ball?
Yeah, I think it could obviously maybe hurt through the air, just getting a grip on the football. I think everything I've listened to BYU wise is that you guys front 7 is kind of the strength of the team. I don't know if I'm right there. Obviously you guys are well coached. He's won since he got to BYU, but I still think we'd be able to move it a little bit. Just JD and Devin Neal and the offensive line's been good, but I feel like it would be a disadvantage to KU. Just maybe through the air. I don't know. Maybe your D-backs will be slipping, but I don't know. It looks like it's going to rain. It's forecasted rain like the entire day, like from the morning all the way till like, I don't even care past 6 p.m. because that's when the game is, so at least till 6 p.m., 7 p.m. So yeah, I still think we'd be able to move the ball, but maybe it would help your guys' ground game too. So I don't know. I don't know really who the advantage would go to, but yeah, I would suck to have all your guys' fans out there and our fans tailgating in a bunch of rain.
Yeah. Are you going to be there tomorrow?
Yeah, I'll be at the game. So I'm
Awesome.
Excited. I know
Awesome.
I keep saying tomorrow like you, because I keep thinking it's Friday and it's somehow not, but I keep thinking the game's tomorrow.
Yeah, I probably have said that. It does feel like a Friday. Yeah, I'm in Virginia, although I wasn't at the time, but I went to BYU played UVA. We had Taysom Hill at the time, and it got rain delayed forever and ever, and we were all soaked, and we stayed, and it was a close one. Yeah, and it was just chaos, and we ended up losing to a UVA team that we were better than, and it's just one of those things with the rain. Chaos happens. but hopefully there's good weather. It doesn't rain it out, and that we're able to get a good game. Well, awesome. This has been really good. But before you go, now I've got the real hard hitting question for all of our BYU fans who will be in Kansas, traveling to the game that haven't been there before. What do they need to go check out in terms of food, in terms of just experience to experience the Lawrence, Kansas vibe that you got going there?
Yeah, so Mass Street is obviously a big thing in Lawrence. It's a lot of shops, it's a lot of food. There's a place called Jefferson's that's kind of known for their wings. KU basketball actually takes their recruits there a lot. There's a place called 23rd Street Brewery, where they have it's like Bill Self mac and cheese, obviously KU's basketball. So 23rd Street's really good. There's a lot of places on Mass, like whether you want just like a quick Chipotle, something like that, or there's cool restaurants too. Trying to think. There's a place called John Brown Underground, which is kind of like a my friend circle group, but it's a really cool vibe to go just chill and drink maybe a little bit. There's bars all over Mass Street. I'm sure the BYU fans will hear the Hawk references. It's like a dirty, nasty 18-year-old college bar right there in Lawrence, and there's like 2 bars that surround it called the Wheel, which if you got BYU fans hear this, go to the Wheel before the game, get some food there. They got pizza underneath, and it's just a cool vibe. BYU fans seem really cool so far, so it'd be cool to see some there. So go there, get food. If you don't like the food, upstairs there's pizza down below, but their food's good, and it's a great place to drink. Watch college football at 11 a.m. They got TVs in there, so the Wheel's great. And then there's a place called the Bull that's right next to. They call it the Triangle. It's 3 bars: the Hawk, the Wheel, the Bull. So the Bull's cool too. So if you want a place to watch football and eat, I'd go to the Wheel or go somewhere on Mass. And Lawrence is great. Hopefully our fans treat you guys really well. Obviously there's going to be some asshole fans, a part of every fan base, and probably some drunk fans, but I'm excited to see BYU fans. I've heard they, like I said, they travel well. There's going to be a ton there. So I'm looking forward to meeting them, and I hope I like them by the end of Saturday, because even if they're nice and we lose, I'll probably be pissed because I really want to start 4-0. But I'm looking forward to a really good game and a really good atmosphere.
Yeah, it'll be exciting. And even though I'm not making it to this one, I hope at some point, whether it's football or basketball, to make it there to Lawrence and check it out. I've heard campus is beautiful and tons of good food recommendations now. So,
yeah.
Well, Braiden, thanks so much for hopping on. This was really good. We're excited. We're excited to be in the Big 12. We're excited to be playing Kansas. Yeah, the trash talk has all seemed pretty friendly so far on Twitter. And so hopefully it, like you said, it stays that way. We have a pretty good, fun rivalry between the two schools. But so where can everybody find you and see all your content?
Yeah, so my Twitter handle is bturner23. And if you want to follow my podcast, I do it with 2 of my really good friends. We have fun. We interview a lot of former KU players, and we just keep it fun. Like, we don't act like analysts. We're just fans, really. So that's, some fans enjoy it, some don't. It's called Aint No Seats Podcast. The Twitter handle's at Aint No Seats Pod. So yeah, if you guys followed us, that'd be great. I'd love to start a relationship with BYU fans. Come to Provo someday. And if you personally come to Lawrence, or anyone comes to Lawrence, feel free to reach out. I'm pretty easy to get a hold of, so I'd love to meet anyone, and I'd love to come to Provo someday.
Awesome. Well, we hope to have you, and thanks so much. Go check him out, and I'll put all that stuff in the comments below, and look forward to this weekend, and hopefully we've got a good one for us. So thanks again.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.